What is my money mindset? What am I saying to myself? And it occurred to me at some point a couple years ago in my business, I'm like, you know something? I think there's a collision going on. I'm actually believing their stories. And I had to look at, well, who am I and what do I really believe about abundance and about money? And that, Tanya, that's where these miracles started happening, because I realized I really did a lot of inner work and meditating and journaling. And I realized I just know we're all meant to be abundant.
Welcome to the Growth Life Podcast, where we celebrate individuals and their stories about moments where they were courageous enough to embrace uncertainty, brave enough to love diversity, and smart enough to realize that they don't know everything. The Growth Life Podcast shares stories of growth in all areas: careers, mindset, relationships, wealth, and health.
All right, welcome to our podcast listeners. Tanya Revere here. We're talking about the growth life. You know, we think about growth and we think about really what it takes to stay moving along in a proactive, intentional way. And we know it takes courage. It takes courage to embrace uncertainty. And with that, trust. You have to trust that everything is working out and moving you forward. People you meet, everything that's happening in your path. And you have to be brave enough to embrace the concept of diversity, that not everyone's going to be like you, not everyone's going to think like you, and you don't want that. You want to appreciate that there's so much to learn from new perspective. Speaking of learning too, the growth life is truly about recognizing that you don't want to be perfect. You don't want to think you know everything and that you have to be so right, because what fun is that, right? I mean, what's the point? Life is so much more interesting and creative and juicy when you stay in the learning mode. And of course, that's the growth life. That's what it's all about. So we wanted to bring some really special people on our show and really talk about what it's like to be in the growth life really intentionally, from everyday people that are making some incredible things happen in their life. And we came across our guest today, Julie Reisler, and I had to make sure I got that pronunciation correct. So she gave me a really cool tip that it's like drinking Riesling. And from there, I was like, okay, I will not forget it now. So it's like we're having a glass of Riesling. It's going to be a refreshing conversation with this really incredible woman that I have met in just this short period of time through our interactions with the TEDx opportunity and Rod Hairston speaking on stage. And then it's just been like this instant magnetic, like I feel like we've known each other forever. And I just knew we had to get you on our show talking about some really important stuff. So before we get into all the juicy good stuff, I want to read our bio, or I want to read your bio to everybody so they can get a better feel of, you know, what you've been working on, what's important to you, and what they're in for. Sound good?
Awesome.
Okay. So let's talk about your background. Now, you're an author. I'm guessing a pretty incredibly successful author too, because you have more than one book out. Is that true?
My next book is about to launch shortly, and it's in a series. So I have a journal that goes with the first book, but it's coming. The second.
That's what I thought you said that. So yeah, brilliant to have a series. Okay. So you're a life designer and it's trademarked.
Yes.
I want to know about that in a second. Okay. So you're a founder and CEO of a company called Empowered Living, which is life design and personal development. You're a multi-time TEDx speaker, which is how we met. And the focus is you're really hosting this whole concept, this whole theme around being the newest you. And that's also trademarked. Very cool. And you have a whole podcast series around this. And you are an international life design coach and teacher on this popular app called Insight Timer. Yeah, I have that. And I did not even know that. I can't wait to hear more. So you have a master's degree in health and wellness coaching. Very cool. With a concentration in nutrition and more than 12 certifications, just a few, in mindset and well-being. You are the author of Get a PhD in You, which I grabbed right away, the companion journal, and Get a PhD in You, the business edition, which I would love to hear about. She is also the faculty of Georgetown University in their coaching program, and is super passionate about helping you master your inner world so you can be a master of your outer world. So just such good stuff in this. Let's go back to this concept around life trademarking, the life designer, theme or topic, and why you would even do that. And then also the brand, the Youest You.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I just realized why you look so familiar, because you were the first person I met when I spoke at Austin, and I was like, I know her face. I know it because we had spoken. I hadn't seen you. So I'm so honored to be here and to have this conversation. This is so much fun. And I'm an open book. Literally, I write books. I'm an open book. So I'm excited to delve into any of these topics. So Tanya, so life designer, it's really interesting because I went through this program. I got my degree in coaching, and I always felt like I was supposed to help people. I didn't want to be a therapist, although therapists are great. I did the psych background. And I remember when I worked with a coach myself, this is years ago, when I was working through my own personal development and transformation and breakdowns to breakthroughs. And I had this coach that just changed my world. And I thought that is what I am supposed to be doing. That's part of what I'm supposed to be doing, is to help people really, you talked about being brave and to grow and to be open-minded and to shift. And so when I started my business, it was before even now where there's just coaches everywhere, but I could see there were a lot of, coach was used a lot. And it was, to me, it didn't feel like it encompassed everything that I felt like I do and want to do. And so I'm one of those people, I love words. I have words all over my house. I've drawn quotes everywhere. I have words on my mirror. My poor husband's like, do we have a mirror anymore that doesn't have words on it? I mean, it's literally inspirational words everywhere. And I thought, what are the words? What really sums up what I do and how I want to be thought of and known, and how can I serve? And so what I like about Life Designer is that it's really about you. As you get to design it, you get to choose it, you get to step forward, and it's not just your health and well-being, it's everything. It's all parts of your life, because probably like you, I believe how we do one thing is how we do everything. And so I liked Life Designer because it was all encompassing. And then I was strongly encouraged to trademark it. I had never done that before. And here's kind of a neat thing that happened. I literally set the intention. I was like, I don't know who does trademarking. I've never done it. Went to the beach with my family, and 2 days later ran into an old friend from college. He is a trademark lawyer. That's what he does. He's out of DC. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I'm thinking. And he's like, Julie, I got it. Like, let's do it together. And so he's my trademark guy. I didn't even know, I knew there was such a thing, but I didn't know anybody. And so to me, that's also the power of, intention and really in having that trust, kind of bringing back.
Everything's coming to you. That's moving.
Yes.
Yes.
So that was Life Designer. And I know you'd asked with the Youest You. Again, when my business is iterated and shifted and changed as I've changed. And so when I rebranded, I got what I'm really saying is I'm trying to help people be their best self, their truest self, their Youest You. And I was like, oh my God, it sounds like Dr. Seuss. He talks about your you or you. And I was like, no, you're youest, you're the highest essence of who you are. And again, working with this team, they're like, you really should trademark that because it's great. And you can use it for all of what you do. So again, I called Andy and I'm like, Andy, I've got another trademark for you. How do you feel? Youest You. And so, it's just been fun. It's been really fun.
Everyone needs an Andy.
Everyone needs an Andy. He's awesome. Give you his info later. It's awesome.
So the concept, and one of the things I thought was so brilliant when I heard you on stage, and you were absolutely one of my favorites, was this idea that the more you grow in your life and the more you get a better idea of who you are as you grow, because I like how you said that you've evolved, your business has evolved, your message has evolved. So any listener watching this right now, you're not the same person you were 6 months ago, a year ago, probably even a day ago, if you really want to go that deep. And if I think about, just your entire message, I know you went through a lot, and you've taken some of the toughest lessons in your life, and you really brought it to how you can serve and ultimately how you create abundance. And if I think about that, I know a lot of people struggle with finances and money and bringing things to the world that is perceived as value, right? I would love if you could share a little bit about your journey, your personal journey of recognizing your worth, your value, what abundance means to you, and how people can literally from today, just from listening today, take something and apply it and see a difference. If you could share, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to manage my time because this could be like everyone tuning in. This could be 8 hours. I'm going to spare you all. Well, I think it's important to say, I'm so glad you brought up the piece about abundance and self-worth, because for me, I call myself an experiential learner. I have had to go through different kinds of, I think like all humans, we go through breakdowns and tough times. And, it's interesting. I was raised great parents that were just loving and kind to me. And I'll get into the abundance piece later because I had mixed messages there. So that's sort of its own track. I'll circle back to that. But a lot of the struggle I had was internal. And, I used to think, what's wrong with me? Like I live in a nice home and a decent area and I have loving parents and I am not feeling enough or good in myself. And I struggled a lot with comparing myself. And I think I talked about this in that TED Talk. I danced and I was in a leotard 3 times a week. I was taller and bigger than everyone. I struggled with using food to deal with my emotions. So like, that was not a fun combination to be in a leotard with all these tiny petite girls. And I'm like, literally, until later, I was super, definitely the taller one, bigger one. And I just got into this place of really just being so negative and mean to myself. So my outside looked great and fine. Again, loving parents, but it was the internal world that was just a mess. And, which can sometimes, I don't know that either is worse or better than the other, but what was so, I think, tough for me was that everyone assumed things were wonderful because I also tend to smile often, and I would smile when I didn't even mean to smile. And I realized I started to, wear a mask and to handle life, for me, was using food to cope. And actually it was that breakdown of realizing I had a situation. I was in a job I didn't want to be in, which we'll come back to with abundance. And I had just planned this big event. It was a huge nonprofit in DC, and I was in charge of this huge event. We had this 6-pound bag of tie-dye M&Ms. I talk and joke about this story. And I had them in my office and I could not stop eating them. I had little Dixie cups and I lost track after about 40 cups. The whole time I'm like, well, I'm a hippie. These are cute. They're cool. I can eat them. It was crazy. And I kept eating them. And I realized there was a point where I got really sick and I missed work for 3 days, and it was a wake-up call. I realized something is not working. What is going on? Like a huge wake-up call. I got my butt to a support group. And I would say that's where I started doing this excavation work of myself. And what I uncovered was that I did not feel worthy. I did not have true love and compassion for myself. I was so good at people pleasing. My joke is I could have gotten a PhD in people pleasing. I was excellent at, making sure everyone else was doing well in their life. But what was missing was connection and love and worthiness in myself. And that was showing up all over the place. I think, as I had said earlier, how one thing is in your life usually is how all of it's going. And so it was that experience. And that day, I remember when I went to that support group, I was crying. I didn't want to go. I was embarrassed. I mean, who wants to talk about, I always joked it was cooler. It's much cooler to be pulled over drinking beer versus, you should get pulled over eating M&Ms, but you don't, right? Like it's not so cool eating in the bathroom by yourself. It's just not. And that was my life for a long time. And for me, that being able to be open and share started an entire transformation. And I would say that work has led to really uncovering that we are all meant to thrive. We're all worthy, that self-love, self-connection is our birthright. And so it's been a journey for me. And, you're talking about, hopefully you're not the same person you were 6 months ago. I really use nature a lot as a teacher. And I like to use that because if you look outside, if you took a snapshot every morning, no picture would be the same. It's always changing, and the other piece that I love about nature, when you talk about abundance, I mean, I was just thinking this yesterday. In fact, I literally stopped, pulled over and did a little video because I was just overwhelmed by the beauty. This time of year is just such beauty. And there are all these trees who are abundantly standing with all their leaves, and there's no threat to the other tree. You could see a forest of hundreds of trees, meaning we're all meant to thrive. And again, back to that nature as a teacher, you don't see the corn stalks shoving the other corn stalk over. They're all there in full expression. And so, I think sometimes it's easy to get into a scarcity mindset or a competitive mindset. And I've learned what is way more powerful and true is to be in that co-creative, collaborative, that mindset of, we're all meant to fully self-express and to be abundant. And that's something that's taken time to nurture and nourish. I'll share if it's okay with you. I want to be mindful of that.
I'm so flowing with what you're sharing right now.
Okay. I'm like, wow. Again, I'm trying to get this down so we're not here for 8 hours.
You're very cohesive, comprehensive. You're so good.
All right. Well, I think this is very important because, what's really fascinating to me now as somebody who has a business, and I've had to come up straight up against my beliefs, beliefs to me. So there are thoughts that we say over and over again, and then they start to show up in reality. And so what I'll do is look at reality and say, oh, that's interesting. What is the belief that got me there? Because I don't want that reality. Not making yourself wrong. This is important to be able to forgive yourself, not make yourself wrong, and just realize whatever you're seeing right now is from the past thoughts. Whatever you want to create, that's what's going on right now. So I'm very conscious of my thoughts now, constantly. And so around abundance, as a female entrepreneur, I started out, in coaching. I had a lot of people say, well, Julie, it's a tough business. I'm not sure. I don't know if they were doubting me. I think they were doubting, they had doubts themselves, and they had doubts about the world they were observing. And I thought that's so interesting because I'm obsessed with all of what I'm doing. And I just feel in my gut, in my belly, this is my purpose. This is what I'm here to do. How could it be that I could have that feeling and not be abundant and not be successful? It doesn't make sense to me, because what I believe is we have those unique divine aspects of ourselves that are meant to be expressed here. And I also believe that we are meant, like the trees, like the corn stalks, like the flowers, like anything you see in nature, we're meant to flourish and thrive, all of us. And I also believe we're meant to support each other to thrive. And the more you get into that mindset, the more thriving there is, right? It's a win-win. But I had to look at my mindset and my beliefs around abundance and money, and especially starting out, and what do I charge? How do I, owning my worth? Like, that was a conversation that I had to really look at. I remember that moment of, I had done free coaching in my practicum, and then they wanted to stay on. I had all these coaching clients that were like, can we pay you now? And I thought, well, that's a good sign if you want to pay me. And I mean, my first client, this is not what I charge today, but I will tell you, I was like, I don't know, 25, 40, like $40. That's like, I took a breath. I'm like, $40. Now, that is not, I laugh now. That's not what I took. And it was where I started, and I got confidence the more I, got that, there's a reason I'm in this field and doing this. Like, all of us have these gifts and sacred, potential within us. And so I had to look at my thoughts on money, and I realized, I grew up, as I said, in a really, to put it, I grew up in the Boston area, one of the wealthiest areas in the country. Like, literally, it's right outside of where Harvard and BU and all those areas are. And you have literally most of the people that either are at Harvard or have started companies around there. Like, it's very well-to-do area with a lot of intellectually stimulated people. And I grew up in on a street with mansions and Victorian houses. And then there was one Victorian house that sold their plot, and they had 3 ranch houses, which I later realized is like grew up in a very nice home. But, when it's next to literally a 7-bedroom Victorian, I remember thinking, like, not thinking a whole lot of it. I loved our house. so, but still that comparison, you couldn't miss it. It was like very stark. And I think this is important to say. I had parents that were from very different financial backgrounds. My mom grew up in Long Island with a driver and a housekeeper, and they had a supermarket business and a shoe bit, like, so entrepreneurs everywhere and very successful. And she could have cared less. She drove the same Oldsmobile my whole, she could have cared less, literally, still could care less. And then my dad, who grew up in a farm, and really struggled with worthiness and money, and was the one, like the shoemaker without the shoes, did investing for others and then couldn't invest his own money. So I had a lot of really interesting mixed messages. And I share that because what I've realized is no matter where you are, no matter where you started, what family you grew up in, because I do believe a lot of it starts there. That's what we see. I had the crazy, I would go to my dad's family. It was like Midwestern farm. I loved it. Very, very different. We had a lot of eggs, a lot of double yolks. That was what I remember. A lot of pancakes. And then my mom, my grandmother bought our houses and bailed us out. And I had this mixed, like, it never works out, and then it always works out, and I'm always bailed out. I mean, I had both. And that was kind of like clashing. And I had to look at, what is my money mindset? What am I saying to myself? And it occurred to me at some point a couple of years ago in my business, I'm like, something? I think there's a collision going on. I'm actually believing their stories. And I had to look at, well, who am I and what do I really believe about abundance and about money? And that, Tanya, that's where these miracles started happening, because I realized I really did a lot of inner work and meditating and journaling. And I realized I just know we're all meant to be abundant. Like the fact that, my business continues to do well and thrive and is hopefully going to continue to soar just shows what's possible. And that's possible for everyone and all of us. But what moved the needle was the inner work, which is partially why I wrote the book I did, why I do all this work, is because the outer, our inner reflects the outer. And so I had to redo my beliefs about abundance. And it's an ongoing thing. Every now and then I'm like, oh, wow, that's an interesting thought. That is more my dad, or that's my grandma or my mom. And so I think it's just an interesting conversation. Anyhow, that's the tight version, I hope, of kind of what you were asking.
Yeah. So so many key things. A couple that stand out to me are at the very end here, where you culminated this whole journey with, you did the inner work, and it's almost like it didn't stop, like it's still going.
Oh yeah.
Because you're constantly, it seems to me like you're constantly like aware of your thoughts and even questioning beliefs, where the fact that you can even observe that is pretty profound inner work, right? I mean, I'm just thinking, like, I know in a lot of conversations, people just really connect themselves with their beliefs and their feelings, not realizing that they actually can observe it, and choose what they ultimately want to feel, even in that moment when what you're feeling, if it's pain or scarcity or lack or, whatever it is that, maybe failure or fear, whatever that feeling is still when you really think about it, you can choose to, and I like the word, interrupt that train of feeling and thinking. I mean, and that to me, like when you're talking about the inner work, that to me, it seems like it's something that not only you've done over the however many years, but you still do it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a daily practice. And I think you had actually asked this and I forgot to answer because you just realized when you were speaking, one of the great ways or places to start with this, because to me, what it was is it's waking up. It's becoming conscious of what's typically unconscious. And I see it all the time. Especially when you start to do this work. What will happen is you'll notice it more in your own self, sure as you know, and then you can see it not in a judgmental place, but I can see when somebody or feel when somebody is living like a story is true versus being more of an observer. And I definitely feel like, meditation is one of the things I always recommend first. I started with 30 seconds, and I'm not even kidding. I I literally, in my master's program, I had to write about meditation and study it. And I remember saying to the teacher, I was like, what you don't understand about me is I'm a doer. Like, I don't sit still. It's not my thing. I can't. Like, I'm sorry, I'll do anything else, but I can't sit still. And she's like, you need this more than anyone else in this classroom. Like, you need to learn to do this. Wow. And it's amazing. I say that I started at 30 seconds. And, today it's a cornerstone. It's crucial to my mindset, to my being, my well-being, my intuition. And that would be one of the things I think that can really help to get that consciousness and presence. Another thing
You're on the insight timer, right? I remember wanting to touch on that.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of people that meditate, and then there's a lot of people that maybe haven't started to, and maybe they're curious, maybe they're not, or maybe they've fallen off. I mean, it's an easy thing to start doing it and then not do it.
Right.
Is there something that drew you to that app and to actually go from barely being able to meditate to now all of a sudden you actually have your own program on there, right?
Yeah, it's really wild when you say it that way, because it's really trippy, and it also shows what's possible. Really, we never know how we're going to be used and be of service and impact others. I had a friend in my master's degree program, and we were doing a mindful eating program together. And she's like, Julie, you need this app. She showed it to me. This is maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, this looks actually pretty good, because they had a timer and they had thousands of meditations, and there were some that were 2 minutes, because I was thinking 10 and 15 and 20, that is way out of my ballpark right now, which is ironic, because today 10 minutes feels a little on the shorter side to really get myself to calm down and quiet. Again, that's where I was, and I got really hooked into it. I just loved it. I love the community. You can see, what's really cool is you can see how many people are meditating with you at the same time. So it's like 255,314 people around the world are meditating right now as you meditate. There's ways to connect with people. It was so cool. It was like this community. I loved it. And I just listened and got into it. And it was actually a couple years later, so I started to do them when I would teach, yoga and classes where I would, I learned how to just do basic meditation. But I started to practice and play with it. And finally, a couple years ago, I was at a leadership retreat, and it was actually in Austin. It was in Austin at Travasa, which I think is becoming something else now, but it was when it was Travasa. There were a couple friends of mine, and we were sitting on a rock. We didn't feel like going out or drinking. We just wanted to sit. The stars were out. And I said, I don't know how you guys feel, but I would love to do a meditation with you. What do you think? This is like, at the time I was like, I feel kind of dorky, and they were like, no, we love it. And it was the first time I'd ever said out loud what was been done, what I've been saying internally to myself. And I did a 20-minute, I did what's called your chakras. I did a chakra alignment of your 7 chakras, your energy systems. And I didn't hear anything after, and I thought, oh God, that sucked. Like, I don't think that was so great. And I was a little nervous about it. And all 3 of them were like, I don't know what just happened, but you just took me somewhere else. Whatever just happened, you need to do that. You need to share that. People need to hear that. I'm thinking, you're crazy. I don't think so. I wasn't trained. I love Deepak Chopra, but I wasn't trained by him. I had all these stories. And it turned out 2 of the guys there who are very close friends of mine, their friend had just put a meditation out through Deepak Chopra Center on Insight Timer. And they said, you've got to talk to him. And I did. And George connected me to the person at Insight Timer. And I started with this meditation, and it got really good response. And now today I have 10, almost 14 meditations. I have 4 I just did yesterday. Wow. And a course on recovering from food addiction that just launched this week, an audio course. So
yeah, that's such an important thing going on, right?
Such an important thing. It's great way to get back anyhow.
Really strong. So it sounds like networking is part of your abundance strategy. It seems like you keep meeting people and connecting, and one thing.
Yeah. And I love, it's funny. It's whenever I hear networking, like, I think you're absolutely right. And what's interesting is, to me, and this might be helpful to others listening, I hope everything is helpful, but I've never thought of it in those terms. And networking is the right word. It's just, I think when you are really in that space of being in your purpose, I just love having conversations with people. And so it feels so natural. And I think that that's something, just like abundance is natural, like connecting to me is natural. And when you're in that place of really where I think I feel purposeful and I came here on this planet to make a difference, when I'm in that space, yeah, the networking, it's like, I guess it's funny. I do it all the time and it just seems like, oh yeah, I'm just meeting amazing people that are like-minded doing similar things and we're connecting, collaborating. It's been very cool to reframe it. I didn't even know I was doing that. But when you said, I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. I guess I do networking. Yeah.
Yeah. What's come up a couple times. And, I think a lot of people, like you said, they may not just have a regular, normal conversation with people, and just showing that genuine, like you said, care, concern, or just curiosity is probably another way. Just having conversations with people with the ability to trust that if there's people in your path and you're not totally resistant to them, if there's resistance, they're definitely a teacher or someone you should probably just keep walking, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but if there's somebody there that you're feeling this kind of draw to, or, just having a simple conversation and trusting that there are people around you are there for you to find value with. That's the way abundance concept works in life. You see using that intuitively and not even probably realizing just how much you trust that.
It's beautiful what you're saying. And I think there's like two parts to it too, I'm thinking, because absolutely abundance, it's not, to me, I mean, money is one aspect of it. Abundance is relationships, is connection. We all really, I think if you're anyone who's watching this and you have food on your table and you're able to, partake in delicious meals, that's abundant. And there's so many forms of abundance. And the thing that you were saying, it really hit me, is it's like that conversation that's natural, that you're just, for me, how can I add value? And then also being open to how can I be one of those people that maybe someone comes to me and I can add value to them. So it's that dialogue, that back and forth. I've been playing with this a lot, this idea of an abundance consciousness, or having this mindset of being abundant. And this might be helpful because it was something I looked at, because I'm constantly looking at my own life and looking to see, okay, where might I be shooting myself in the foot and not even realizing it? Because I really, to thrive, the more that I'm thriving, the more others are thriving. That's the way I see it. The more any of us thrives, the more we give permission to others around us. And it's contagious.
Yep.
It reminds me of that Marianne Williamson quote that is, it's like, who are you not to shine? Like the world needs you and I and everybody tuning in to shine. Really, really, like look outside the world. We are all meant to, and it needs us to. So that drives me. And so I always look at, okay, where may I be not shining at my highest potential? And I realized this was a place that might be interesting for people to look at. When I was going to bed, I was noting the things that I had not done. And when I was waking up, I was thinking, oh, shoot, I didn't get enough sleep. And right there, and I'm still working on it. I got to be honest, this is not automatic yet, but I'm training. I'm in training. I should have a sign that says Julie.
Always in training, but yeah.
I'm always in training, yeah. So when I go to bed now, I'm like, all the things that I did. Let me look at all the things I did do and all the things I'm grateful for. I know these things, but I had just slipped in a pattern where I wasn't doing that. So, and then waking up, well, I got 7 great hours. Like, awesome. Okay. That's a great, like, awesome. Like I got that sleep, and what can I be thankful for?
I love what you're describing right now. That moment back again of this choice.
Yeah.
I love those moments where you're like, okay, I'm kind of pissed off or I'm angry. However, I could be grateful. I could be. Do I want to try that out? Do I want to play with that thought and feeling? Do I want to actually be grateful right now and shift my whole energy right now? And just kind of weighing it out, because when you're in that flow of feeling that's not, things just aren't working, right? It's like frustrating. It's like, okay, how far do you want to feed that train?
Yeah.
Because it impacts everything else you're about to show up for. And so it's kind of that moment that, I don't know, it probably happens for everybody listening all throughout the day. It's the moment of awareness where you actually have that choice.
Yeah.
To say, okay, what do I want to feed today? Right.
Perfect. Exactly. And sometimes, because I just had this recently, I'm amicably divorced and I'm happily remarried and I'm happily in all of it. Okay. And so there's a lot of dynamics there, mainly with my first husband. And by the way, I have 2 children with him. I don't refer to him as an ex. I just felt like that had a negative sound to it. I don't want my kids to ever hear that. So I call him my co-parenting partner. I call him my CPP. I actually realized later that I put him in my phone that way. And so when emails come up, I think he probably was like, who is CPP? And I'm like, it's okay. It's not mean, just it works. But it's important though to just, it's a constant, and you said this word earlier, if it's a choice, if there's an interaction that I'm not a fan of, let's say, I've chosen to say, you know what, I take it on that everything that happens I'm a part of. So what is my part? And how is this person a teacher? You used that word before. And I'll tell you, there are some times where I really feel like I'm right. And there's that part of me that's like, do I want to be right? And I've heard this is not a quote I made up. It's like, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Right.
And there are times, and there are times I'm like, I want to be right. And I have to sit with that. And then always what ends up happening is, no, I actually really like to be joyful. That's always, I want to be joyful in the end. But there's a moment, often it's, and you're getting me right now where I'm not in it. But trust me, there are times where I'm not smiling and I'm like, I'm not happy with that. How am I going to look at that differently? And so I just say that because, maybe others can relate to that.
Yeah, you're definitely just a beautiful example of living the growth life. Because to your point, yes, you have great success and you're continuously evolving and growing and producing more value because you're feeding your worthiness, because you're asking those questions, because you're choosing joy over, suffering. Unnecessarily, but we do it. Sometimes we think it feels good in that moment. So I really appreciate your being able to share it's almost like everyday examples with people about what you're growing through. And I think one of the things, you have so many nuggets, from your TED Talks, I was like, there's so many amazing ways she articulates things. I just know that it would be wonderful if you can think about some key little, takeaways that you can give our listeners on ways that they can feel more worthy, to even give more value, and to see that there is so much abundance.
Yeah.
I'm sure that everyone will be really grateful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. And I'm like, okay, which ones? There's a lot of ways. I think, and I think this is there are 2 things I think that are 2 ways to do this right off the bat, no matter who you are. And it's funny, this is one of the meditations I recorded yesterday. it came to me. So I know you and everybody watching is worthy of abundance and thriving. I know that. I know, I am. And one of the ways to really do that physically, because I know for me, sometimes I want it to be tangible. One of the things you can do right now, wherever you are, is literally put your hand on your heart. Put your hand on your heart. You could close your eyes. You don't have to. And I want you to just take a moment and feel you have a heart that is beating on your behalf nonstop. You could even go deeper and, it is beating love, the life force that has been supporting you since day one, before day one. It is constantly for you, loving you, nourishing you, giving you everything you need. That in itself, right there, is something to appreciate, be grateful for, and understand. Our heart, to me, is a giant magnet of love. There's research on us being connected magnetically, energetically through our hearts. And so just breathing and putting your hand to your heart, feel your heartbeat, and understand, even as you feel that, there has to be a reason you're here. There has to be. This was not by chance. There even are the statistics that I've read. They somehow figured it's 1 in 14 trillion chances of being born. Mm. So your beating heart is 1 in 14 trillion chances right now, right here. Right there is just a place to begin with understanding who you really are, at that level, that physical level.
Yeah, that's some incredible leverage just to ponder.
Right. Just even there. The other thing that I always say is, we look in the mirror all the time, in the bathroom, in the car rear view mirror, getting ready, and to start connecting. I was a child that was raised by Louise Hay. I feel like I was literally, but my mom, if anyone knows who she is, she was one of the grandmothers of personal development, and she did this whole work on mirror work. And I had my mom literally do this with me. It was horrible at the time. It was like, hug yourself in the mirror. And I was like, this is so ridiculous. It's this Saturday Night Live sketch. Like, this is embarrassing, but I'll tell you, we look and say things to ourselves all the time. So if it's hard to look at yourself and say, I love you, or you're beautiful, look at your eyes and connect with your eyes and notice, usually people can start there. And these eyes, just love and acknowledge them. They've been looking at you since day one. They've been looking out. Look at your mouth, your ears that you can hear with. So that's a great place to start also, as a mirror, to really start to connect with yourself. Those two practices and meditation have been transformative, to name a few.
Thank you so much. And just to kind of wrap things up, I know that people are going to want to stay connected to you. You have an amazing voice, and it sounds to me like people can actually hear you on Insight Timer, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can look up my name. They have teachers, or sometimes it's just highlighted that day, or under the audio courses. It's now one of my courses is there, but absolutely. Yeah, feel free. And the meditations are free, which is fantastic. They're free. And the audio course is $5. So, there's really no reason. And if you don't like mine, do another one. I don't care. There's tons of them on all different topics. But the meditations really, there's thousands of them, and I can't recommend it enough. And it's an amazing community. The people that run it are just beautiful people.
Yeah, that's so great. And so if people want to stay connected to you, find you, explore more about all the value you offer.
Yes, I would love it. Yeah, and I would love to hear just feedback and connect. I love connecting with people. My website, first and foremost, so I'll spell it because it's spelled differently than it sounds. It's Julie and then REI, like the store, REISLER, juliereisler.com. And then Facebook, you can find me, Julie Reisler Life Designer, and Instagram, Julie Reisler, LinkedIn, Julie Reisler, Twitter, Julie. It's all my name. I just kept it easy. I'm like, find me there. Yeah.
It's super easy. Awesome.
Super easy.
Thank you so much for sharing your heart. I love that you ended with that heart practice, because to me, that's that expansion of love, and you feeling more love for yourself is truly your superpower. Like, that's the secret ingredient to everything that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Seriously, from my heart. You are amazing. You're such a badass of love and growth and transformation. I love what you're doing, and I'm honored to be here. And I really hope this, added. We talked about growth and open-mindedness, and I hope people that are listening really got some nuggets that are going to help them, like, really make an impact.
Yeah, we'll have some great show notes too, and we'll put a lot of this stuff in there. And I know that our community will be seeing more of you. I'm just going to put that out there.
Oh, I hope so. Would love it.
Yeah. So thank you again. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much for catching this episode of the Growth Life Podcast. Join us at growth-u.com. That's growth-u.com.